Marcus Chun wiped down the last table at Romano's Italian Bistro, where he worked as a waiter. At 42, his life had settled into a predictable rhythm of work, and raising his teenage daughter Emma alone. His wife had passed 3 years ago, and every day since had been about putting one foot in front of the other. The evening shift was winding down when an elegant woman in her late 30s walked in wearing a stunning red dress. She had an air of confidence that filled the room. Marcus showed her to a corner table overlooking the city lights. "Just water for now," she said with a warm smile. "I'm waiting for someone." Marcus nodded and brought her water. Throughout the evening, he noticed her checking her phone repeatedly. Her dinner companion never arrived. Finally, she ordered the special, chicken marsala. From across the dining room, Marcus kept an eye on his tables, as he always did. Years of waitering had taught him to notice everything. That's why when he saw the woman suddenly grab her throat, her eyes wide with panic, he didn't hesitate. He was at her side in seconds. "Are you choking?" She nodded frantically, unable to speak. The restaurant went quiet. Marcus moved behind her and wrapped his arms around her waist. He'd learned the Heimlich maneuver years ago, when Emma was small. 1 thrust, 2 thrusts. On the third, a piece of chicken flew from her mouth, and she gasped for air. The restaurant erupted in relieved applause. The woman turned to Marcus, tears streaming down her face. "You saved my life," she whispered. "Just doing what anyone would do," Marcus said, gently helping her back to her chair. "Let me get you some water." His hands were shaking as he walked to the kitchen. The adrenaline was wearing off, and the reality of what had just happened hit him. He'd saved someone's life. When he returned, the woman was composed, but her eyes were red. "I'm Victoria," she said. "Victoria Ashford. Please sit with me for a moment." Marcus glanced at his manager, who nodded. He sat down across from her. "I need to know your name," Victoria said. "I want to thank you properly." "Marcus Chun. And really there's no need. I'm just glad you're okay." Victoria studied him with an intensity that made him uncomfortable. "You have a kind face, Marcus. Tell me about yourself." Something about her made him open up. Maybe it was the vulnerability of what had just happened. He told her about Emma, about how he was working 2 jobs to save for a college fund, about the modest apartment they shared, and the dreams he still held on to despite everything. Victoria listened without interrupting. When he finished, she reached into her purse and pulled out a business card. "I'd like to take you to dinner, to say thank you. Would tomorrow evening work?" Marcus hesitated. "I have to pick up my daughter from volleyball practice." "Bring her," Victoria said immediately. "I'd love to meet her." The next evening, Marcus stood outside Marcello's, the most expensive restaurant in the city, feeling completely out of place in his only suit. Emma wore her nicest dress, the one they bought for her grandmother's funeral. "Dad, are you sure about this?" Emma whispered. "This place looks really fancy." Before Marcus could answer, Victoria appeared. She traded the red dress for an elegant navy pantsuit, but her smile was just as warm. "You must be Emma," she said. "Your father told me you're quite the volleyball player." Over dinner, Victoria asked Emma about school, about her dreams, about what she wanted to study in college. She asked Marcus about his late wife, about how he'd managed these past 3 years. She listened with genuine interest, never once making him feel less than. It wasn't until dessert that Victoria finally shared her own story. "I'm the CEO of Ashford Industries," she said quietly. "We manufacture medical equipment. I built the company from nothing after my divorce 15 years ago. I have no children. No family, really. Work became everything." Marcus nearly dropped his fork. Ashford Industries was one of the largest companies in the state. Victoria wasn't just wealthy. She was a billionaire. "That man who stood me up?" Victoria continued. "That was supposed to be a blind date. My assistant set it up. She's worried I work too much." She laughed softly. Maybe choking on my dinner alone was the universe telling me something. The weeks that followed were surreal. Victoria called Marcus regularly, at first to check in, then simply to talk. She invited him and Emma to a basketball game, to a museum exhibit, to a charity gala, where Emma got to wear a dress that made her feel like a princess. Marcus kept waiting for the catch for Victoria to reveal some ulterior motive, but it never came. She was simply lonely, he realized. Despite all her success, she'd built walls around herself, and somehow that moment of vulnerability in the restaurant had created a crack. "I don't understand what you want from us," Marcus finally said one evening as they sat on a bench watching Emma play in a nearby park. "Victoria was quiet for a long time. When you saved me that night, something shifted. I realized I'd spent 15 years building an empire, but I'd forgotten to build a life. You have so little, Marcus, compared to what I have. But you're rich in ways I'm not. Emma adores you. You have purpose. You have love. You could have that too," Marcus said gently. "Maybe," Victoria said, "if I'm brave enough." 6 months after that night at Romano's, Victoria offered Marcus a job managing her personal charitable foundation. The salary was more than he'd made in 5 years of waitering. He could finally give Emma the life she deserved. But it was more than that. Slowly, carefully, Marcus and Victoria had fallen in love. Not the desperate, passionate love of youth, but something deeper. A love built on respect and understanding, and a recognition that they'd both survive storms and come out stronger. On their wedding day a year later, as Marcus stood in his tuxedo watching Victoria walk down the aisle, he thought about that evening when everything changed. Sometimes life's greatest gifts came from the simplest acts of human kindness. Emma squeezed his hand. "Happy, Dad." "The happiest," he whispered. Victoria reached them and took his hands. Her eyes were full of tears. "Thank you for saving me," she whispered. "In every way that matters." "Thank you for seeing me," Marcus replied. And in that moment, surrounded by the people they both collected along their journeys, Marcus understood that wealth wasn't measured in dollars. It was measured in moments like this. In love freely given. In second chances embraced. The rescue that night had saved Victoria's life. But what came after it saved them both? If this story touched your heart, please like, share, and subscribe for more stories about life, love, and second chances. Leave a comment below and tell us about a moment when a small act of kindness changed everything for you.